Good morning. Good morning to everyone online. I'm Janelle McCoy with the Mid-Atlantic Geospatial Transportation Users Group, and I'd like to welcome you to the webinar entitled South Jersey Transportation Planning Organization's Traffic Signal Inventory. Thank you for being with us today. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be available at the magtug.wordpress.com website and on MagTug's YouTube channel shortly after today's live broadcast. Please visit our website for more Mid-Atlantic geospatial and transportation-related events coming up in 2017. Both in-person and virtual events are continuously added, so please check back often and add your email to our announcement list service to receive reminders of upcoming events and other geospatial goodness. Also be sure to follow us on Twitter under our handle at MAGTUG, MagTug. If you're interested in making suggestions for future information exchange events, we invite you to attend the next short MagTug Steering Committee teleconference on Wednesday, November 1st at 10 a.m. For details about how to join the teleconference, visit the About Us webpage on our website and scroll down to the Steering Committee section. As an all-volunteer organization, MagTug would like to offer all our attendees the opportunity to be part of our virtual information exchange webinar series, just like this one. If you use a geospatial application that you feel transportation professionals may benefit from adding to their toolbox, or would like to share a success in using geospatial technology or reasoning to support a transportation project, we would like to hear from you. Please email a short description to our email address, midatlanticgist@gmail.com, to be considered for a future 30 to 45-minute virtual event. I would like to take an extra moment to thank MagTug's sponsor, JMT Technology Group, and our host for today's webinar. JMT Technology Group is a part of Johnson, Meram, and Thompson, Inc., a progressive geospatial and information technology services provider specializing in transportation application solution, and is proud to call the Mid-Atlantic its home. Bob Poliska from JMT Technology Group is our co-host today. Bob is also a MagTug Steering Committee member. Bob, would you like to say anything to the audience?
No, I think that covers it. Thanks, John. I guess to everyone out there, we appreciate you attending the webinar, and I think it's informative and helpful for everyone.
All right, thank you, Bob. He's the magic behind everything you see here today. As always, we would like to ask you to participate in today's webinar by typing questions that spring to mind throughout the webinar in the chat box at the bottom right of the WebEx window. I or Bob will read back your questions at the end of the webinar so that everyone has the opportunity to hear the answers and better understand this great tool. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our panel of presenters. Andrew Tracy from the South Jersey Transportation Planning Organization. Andrew oversees SJTPO's capital programming and project development efforts and has been a transportation engineer for SJTPO for 5 years. In addition, we have Dave Bragg from JMT Technology Group. Dave was the GIS project manager for the SJTPO Traffic Signal Inventory project and is a geospatial professional for over 20 years, with over 20 years of experience. Matthew Duffy from Atlantic County's Office of GIS. Matthew has been a GIS professional with Atlantic County since it first formed back in the late 1990s and is a 2017 ESRI SAG Award recipient for his work with the Atlantic County Department of Intergenerational Services. Congratulations, Matt. And last but not least, Colleen Richwall of Taylor Weissman Taylor. Colleen is a professional engineer with over 30 years of design experience with traffic signal and utility design in New Jersey and PA. They will be walking us through a 3-part web mapping application that includes signal inventory collection, mapping, and map feature data editing. By leveraging the Atlantic County's ArcGIS Online account, the SJTPO is able to easily provide these signal inventory solutions to each of its participating counties. All right, first up is Andrew. The virtual floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Janelle. Good morning, everybody. This is Andrew Tracy from SJTPO. You can go ahead and bring me to the first slide. Thank you very much. A little bit of background about the MPO. MPOs were established by the Federal Highway Administration to provide federal funding to transportation projects. So there are 3 MPOs in New Jersey, and SJTPO's planning region is comprised of Atlantic County, Cape May County, Cumberland County, and Salem counties here in southern New Jersey. So our MPO acts as a center for regional planning and project development, and we work closely with all of our subregions, all of our constituent municipalities and counties to develop transportation projects. Next slide, please. Okay. So that brings us to this project. What was the impetus for the traffic signal inventory? There were a few different needs that this inventory met. First off, there are a lot of old traffic signals throughout the region, many of which were formerly municipal signals that are now maintained by the counties. And when these signals were turned over to the counties, there was very little information provided to the counties. And this occurred both in Atlantic and Cape May counties, where the counties are now maintaining these formerly municipal signals. So one of the purposes of the inventory was to try to gather the information needed to maintain these old signals. And also one of the main purposes of the project was the preservation of institutional knowledge. So there have been some staff changes, throughout the region, and especially in Atlantic County recently, with some of their traffic engineers retiring. And when they retire, a lot of their knowledge of the county's traffic signals goes with them. But having a GIS system in place would help to preserve and organize all that traffic signal knowledge, permanently and throughout future staff changes. Also, we hope to use this signal inventory for project screening purposes. SJTPO loves funding traffic signal upgrades to make the signals safer and improve traffic flow throughout the region. And this inventory will serve as a basis for screening, region-wide screening for MPO-funded traffic signal improvements. So we can use the inventory to identify substandard signals, and we can find the signals that would benefit the most from upgrades. Finally, while we were running this project, there was a parallel project that was initiated slightly sooner, which was a region-wide traffic data collection effort, which included traffic counts at many of these signals. And so with the signal inventory and with the turning movement count data provided by the traffic data collection project, we now have all of the information needed to retime any of the signals included in those studies. And we can turn over all that data to designers who are designing future upgrades for those signals as well. There is a follow-up project, the traffic signal, the Regional Signal Retiming Initiative, which is just getting underway now, and that initiative is using this inventory as one of the main data sources. Next slide, please. So to begin, we offered this to all 4 of our counties, and 3 chose to participate. Atlantic County said they had approximately 164 signals they would like inventoried. Cape May had 232, and Salem had 35. This includes all types of signals, including flashers and similar things. So we expected about 431 signals to be inventoried total in those counties. Cumberland County already has an in-house GIS system with a lot of their signals in it that we hope to integrate with this system sometime in the future. So we worked very closely with our counties and spec'd out a scope of work for the RFP process, the request for proposal process. This was competitively bid out. We wanted a detailed inventory of all of the signal controller hardware so we could determine which signals can handle new technologies such as vehicle detection cameras or performance measure software or other future upgrades. And we also felt it was very important to conduct an inventory of crosswalks and ADA-compliant curb ramps and all of the other pedestrian facilities at an intersection so that we could possibly use that information for a future pedestrian gap assessment. But we wanted the inventory to be very thorough and to collect all of the data we could because, you know, they're going to be out there in the field anyway, might as well get it all in one go. And finally, for the RFP scope of work, we wanted all of this inventory to be brought into a GIS system, and we wanted the system to act as sort of a central clearinghouse for all of the signal information that planners or engineers may ever need access to. So it was very important for the system to be able to host PDF files of signal plans or electrical plans or timing plans or other signal information. It needed to be very easy to access and use, easy enough that, you know, traffic engineers and planners who have limited GIS knowledge can get into the system and get the information they need very easily. So after a competitive federal consultant selection process, we selected the engineering firm Taylor Wiseman Taylor. They were working with two sub-consultants, JMT and Advantage Engineering. Taylor Wiseman Taylor collected all of the field data, and then JMT provided the GIS component for the project. So if you advance one more slide. I'll turn things over to my other panelists in a minute, but I just wanted to say that now with the inventory complete, I wanted to talk briefly about what we hope to use the inventory for moving forward. So the inventory, along with the accompanying traffic signal turning movement count data we collected in that parallel project, we hope to use all of this data to prioritize signals for upgrades. We'd like to do systemic upgrades throughout the region, find all of the signals that would benefit most from being improved, and then provide federal funding for traffic signal upgrades on all of these signals. So we want the signals to be smarter, more responsive to variations in travel demand. We'd like to add communication systems to the signals so that we can monitor them remotely and have them interconnected so they may coordinate with nearby signals. Right now there are no advanced computerized traffic signal systems in South Jersey, but there are a lot of corridors that would definitely benefit from this technology. And we also hope to provide better bicycle and pedestrian accommodations at these intersections as well, and just overall improve the safety for all roadway users. So the hope is to, in the coming years, provide federal funding for region-wide systemic signal improvements to help the counties maintain all of their signals, to make them safer, and to improve the traffic flow. So before I turn things over, I'll just say that all of the consultants did an outstanding job on this project, and we're very happy with the results, and the inventory is complete now, and it's working great. And at this point, I will turn things over to Colleen Richwall. She was the project manager from Taylor Wiseman Taylor to discuss how the project went underway.
Thank you, Andrew. This is Colleen Richwall from Taylor Wiseman Taylor. Here at Taylor Wiseman Taylor, we were very proud to be the prime consultant for the SJTPO Traffic Signal Inventory project. To start, we reviewed the list of signal inventory facilities that was in the SJTPO RFP, and we expanded upon it to assure that the counties were receiving all the data that we thought that they needed. The RFP also included a list of predetermined locations that were then added to the KMZ for quick identification in the field for all locations and in the office. All predetermined location numbers were maintained throughout the project, just to keep things organized. There were 431 locations, as David said, 35 Salem, 164 Atlantic, 232 in Cape May. Out of those 431, I just want to make a point that 258 of them were traditional traffic signals. They're the regular signals that you see red, yellow, green out in the field. Then there were 173 that were beacons, as Andrew mentioned. The beacons included everything from a flasher intersection controlled beacon that's red, red, or red, yellow, warning beacons, rapid rectangular flashing beacons that are used for a lot of pedestrian crossings these days, and pedestal and mast arm mounted beacons. So in addition to the initial 258 traffic signals, there were 173 signals that were actually beacons, which were handled a little differently as we went through the data gathering process. So on this slide, you'll see the locations of the Atlantic County on the left, the Atlantic County locations there with little blue circles. And then on the right, you see the original RFP database with some color on there in green, showing just pretty much the information we started with when we started the process. All right, next slide, please. We then started coming up with an inspection inventory data list. That's the inventory list you see here. There's just a screen capture of the controller section of the inventory list here. We compiled the facilities data list, as you can see. We established the categories, which are the icons, and I'll go through all the categories on the next slide. But for right now, we created what our categories needed to be. We gave it a good thinking. We just went through and figured out what we thought should be added or maybe we didn't need from the list. We went through everything in the RFP, plus we added some. I guess prior to the field work, we went through and just went through everything and made sure everything made sense. We went to organize the facilities by category. Now, these are the category right now. Location, controller, standard, traffic signal standard, mast arm, traffic signal head, pedestrian head, sign, push button, beacon, ADA ramp, crosswalk, and solar. They were all the categories. As you can see on the left side there of the picture, the controller, that's just the controller category. Then we expanded upon that and we utilized pull-down menus to make it easy for the field personnel to quickly choose and revise choices. Then we went to we staged the review by color, which I'll get into on the next slide, and we put in an open review comment. So if they saw something strange and something unusual, they had an open line that they could just type into. Next slide, please. Then we got into app icon development. Pretty much we wanted to make it, as you looked at the inventory, we wanted to make it self-explanatory as to what you were looking at. If you have a beacon, see that on the right there's red and yellow or traffic signal head, we just wanted to make it very clear in the end result. So first we determined the critical categories. That's that data list we talked about. We organized all the facilities into the categories and we figured out what would go under each category. We simplified the icons for data collection. So we had JMT come up with a simpler set of icons at the beginning, and then we put our published set, as you can see here, that was what was put into the final version. It just made everything easier. One of the best things we did in data collection was color coding the icons based on the project stage. So before its inventory, it was red. After field inventory, it became purple. Reviewed in-house, it was green. If we were in the field and we said that we need, let's say we came back to the office and said, oh, we missed that push button, needs field review, we made it blue so we knew where to go, and it would stick out and say, okay, when we're in this area, we'll pick this up. So it made everything clearer using all this color. And then needs office review was yellow. And then the one thing, color I didn't have on there was black for when something was pre-populated. So we worked with JMT in determining this early in the project to be mobilized in the field using our iPads with the app, resulting in greater efficiency and less data collection error. So it made everything flow a lot smoother, having everything in there to start. Next slide, please. Then from there, we went to data collection workflow. With the data collection workflow, we first requested, gathered, and organized traffic signal plans, electrical plans, and timings, and from all the counties. So we basically were inquiring with all the counties to find whatever plans we could so they could be attached to the app. We also acquired the MyoVision traffic counts for the available locations. They were handled as a link to the app later on. We attached the plans, timings, and counts to each location of the app. The MyoVision was done as a link. We pre-populated the app in the office, and that really saved a lot of time. It was key. That way we could insert whatever information we had off the plans and review of Google Earth. We can put the speed limits in. All that stuff can be all pre-populated in advance prior to boots on the ground, and that saved us a lot of time in the field. Then once out in the field, and when I say pre-populated, basically any piece of information we put into the app prior to him going out there, the guys going out there, therefore they knew right where to look for things and follow up. They confirmed every piece of data in the field, but if it was already in there and was correct, he went on. They would change it, change the color of it to say, yes, it's done. So that color coding was critical also. And then the field, utilize the iPads with backup batteries. We took a lot of photos. This was photo intensive, this project. I mean, some controllers had 6, 8, maybe even more photos at the controllers. So a lot of photos. A lot of photos on an iPad means a big drain of a battery. So we had always very large backup batteries with us to be able to get through the day. We ran a pilot program where we chose 9 various locations throughout the project covering different categories in all 3 counties. We changed the color in the field as we completed, which I already mentioned, and then we reviewed, checked all field data as it was generated. One thing I wanted to mention was as we did the pre-populating, and when we were here in the office at the desktop, we used our sub Advantage a lot for doing pre-populating, and we did it here in TWT also. When you're pre-populating in the office, there was a constriction with the ArcGIS, a constraint that we were not able to copy. Once you did like a whole traffic signal foundation in one corner, you couldn't copy it from place to place. So you were able to do it right on the iPad, but not in the desktop. So I just want to mention that that was just something we ran into. But other than that, the app worked beautifully, the colors worked beautifully, and it was really a great process in a way to do the data collection. And that's all I had. So now I'd like to pass it on to David Bragg from JMT.
Thanks, Colleen. So as Colleen mentioned, we took a lot of the features, the inventory that she mentioned, the categories. We used that as a basis for a data model. So the categories became feature classes, and then the details of those categories became attributes within inside of those feature classes. And to support the collection, we leveraged JMT's ArcGIS Online Organization. So we set up a group and a hosted feature service. So we set up an inventory feature service using the schema that was outlined that Colleen had just talked about with all the different feature classes, controller and push button and mast arm and pedestal and crosswalk and curb ramps and all of those things. And once it was up, and we built the database and populated it with the attributes turned into pull-down menus. We published that content into ArcGIS Online. Having it as a hosted inventory feature service with inside our ArcGIS Online account allowed us to utilize that same feature service for several different purposes. So we could publish content, we could publish web maps to support collection, so both in-house and out in the field, so using the collector app in the field, using either just the standard web map or web application in-house to support some of that pre-population that Colleen had just talked about. So before even going out into the field, we could edit the content up there, knowing that when the folks got into the field, they're looking at that same hosted inventory feature service. So it's the same data We also created a review application, so the folks in-house, they could review the content as it was being collected. So the beauty of having that centralized feature service, as things are updated in the field, you can see them real time inside the office. It helps with troubleshooting. If there's questions in the field, the folks in the office, the engineers in the office could look at the same information that the folks in the field had and help them decide how to best capture information, what to do. That centralized feature service also helped us with a dashboard application to support project tracking, so we could see the progress of the collection as we went through it over the several months that we were doing the field collection. And then finally, once we got all done, one of the final deliverables of this project was a custom viewing application that again leveraged that same inventory feature service. So by having that centralized inventory feature service, we were able to create a bunch of different applications with different purposes off of that centralized feature service. As Colleen mentioned, when we did the data collection, we had the collector app that was sitting out in the field. Those of you that use the collector app, you know it's just a simple web map that's accessed through either a tablet or an iPhone or a smartphone device out in the field. So they were able to collect. We weren't as concerned with survey grade accuracy with a lot of these features, so we were able to use the imagery service within inside of the ESRI ArcGIS platform as kind of a basis. So finding relative locations and aligning the features that were in the field with what we saw in the imagery. It was more important to get the inventory there in place, what was there, than the specific locations of everything. You can see some of the colors here. These are the symboli, or the symbols that we use for the collection. They're much more streamlined. They're not as cartographic. It helps the folks in the field to actually identify features a little bit easier than having some of the cartographic symbols that Colleen showed on some of the previous slides. You can see that we also had some photos that were taken. Colleen mentioned there was a lot of photos were taken, so I'm actually going to switch and show the application. So this is the reviewer application that was used. This is within inside of our ArcGIS Online account, within inside of JMT. I'm going to refresh this. So within inside of here, we could control layers and base mapping. We could edit features. Here's one particular. This is a location. So we always started with a location was kind of the starting point, and then a lot of the information was populated along the way here, so the street names, the speed limits for the roads coming into the intersection. And as Colleen mentioned, there was a lot of photos taken. So for every intersection, they took every approach into that intersection, a photo for that intersection. And WebEx and ArcGIS Online do not go together. If I zoom in a little bit closer on one of these. In this case here, we've got a little bit more detail in here. So each one of these, if I click on this, there should be a crosswalk with some information on here. And again, an associated photo with a picture of the crosswalk and the curb ramp here in this case. Some of the more intense features were the controllers. Colleen mentioned, I think, some of these controllers, I think they had on average 12 photos with inside of each controller. So there was definitely a lot of information. They took multiple pictures of the controllers and the contents of the controllers. They actually opened up all the boxes and took detailed photos with inside of the boxes as well, all adding to the overall information for the intersection here. I believe you can see too on some of these, we have the traffic signal plan as PDF documents, so that was mentioned at the beginning too. Part of the in-house prior to field collection, we added a lot of the traffic signal plans to the intersections as well, so that data is now accessible through the GIS too. In addition to the actual collection, And the reviewer processes, we created an operations dashboard. The operations dashboard was created to help project stakeholders visualize where we were inside the inventory. So this was something that was shared out to SJTPO and other project stakeholders on the team to see the progress of the inventory. We published a pared down version of the overall traffic inventory to just show locations. And in here, in the screenshot, you can see some of the color coding that Colleen was mentioning, where the green represents those that have been reviewed. The blue diamonds in here are the ones that needed field inventory or field review at the time. The purple needed to be inventoried out in the field, so they were pre-populated, ready. There's some information there, but they had not been visited yet in the field. The yellow, there's one in there for bringing back officer review. So the operations dashboard allows us to visualize this stuff quickly, communicate out the progress. We have that nice graphics there, so you can see the progress that at this point there was 86% of the locations were reviewed in-house and ready to go when we did this little snapshot in time here. At the end of it, what we had to provide was the completed inventory, and then we also created a custom application. That application was an ESRI leaflet application. We had the inventory was on there as well as all the photos. We were able to integrate MioVision. So I believe it was about 69 of the intersections we inventoried had an associated traffic study that was done previously through MioVision. So we're able to link those. So there's a simple hyperlink now between the intersection to the associated MioVision report, the traffic study. So as people are reviewing the content, they can not only see the photos, they can see the traffic plans, but for those intersections where it's available, they can view the MioVision link. I think I did this right. So what you guys are seeing here, the application, the final application is being hosted by Atlantic County. The content was ported over, so we're able to copy the ArcGIS Online content from JMT's organization over into Atlantic County's organization, as well as the application, and then stitch the services back together between the application and the newly hosted services on Atlantic County. You can see here, as we go through this, we click on an intersection, and we get the pictures associated with the intersection. There's the timing PDF that's accessible through here as well. If we zoom down a little bit, we'll start to. And start to turn on some of the additional layers in here. And one of the things that we were able to add as well is Atlantic County has some nice imagery. So they has hosted its services again because the back end for this is all ArcGIS Online. So we're able to bring in those imagery services directly with inside of the inventory. So now we've got 2017 imagery with the inventory here. So in this case, I've got my controller. I can see the attributes associated with that, and then I can see all the photos. If I wanted to click on a photo, I can get a blown-up view of that. So we're able to successfully translate the inventory into a hosted feature service. Leveraging ArcGIS Online, we're able to develop several applications off of that single service to support the initial population of the data, the field collection and review, as well as the final deliverable that was handed over to Atlantic County, which that data is now being used for maintenance operations and updating. And at this point, I think I will turn it over to Matthew Duffy from Atlantic County to talk about how that data is being used now.
Thanks so much, David. Appreciate all that. I hope everybody can hear me okay. I was sick all week last week, so if I cough or have to pause for a second, I'm just going to apologize to you in advance. It's been kind of a tough morning so far, so hopefully we won't have any spells of coughing. As David noted, we were able to port everything over to our organization back in July, right when the presentation, or right when the project was about to be delivered for the final deliverable over to our county. I was invited to attend a project meeting, it was at that meeting that we decided that we were going to have to figure out a way to host this, and it was also sort of uncovered at that meeting, I guess, and maybe sort of an afterthought, how are we going to maintain this? And that is when they asked me to take a look at this and see what we could do. So our office went ahead and reviewed the application that they had and tried our best to get everything over. And we did a pretty good job. We were under the gun, as we usually are. In this case, we had a very good intern, co-op intern over in engineering. And they needed to give him the ability to edit this while he was still here. He only had about a month left. At that point, it was probably August, I guess, and we had everything just about set up, and they had realized that they needed an application to keep it up to date. We decided at that meeting in July and then subsequent meetings and discussions that we were going to build an application for them, or at least try to. With that application that we built, we were able to very quickly, pretty easily actually, transfer, port over, and then get everything as you see it now in this one little slide. I'm not going to do a live demonstration of the review application today, as it's very slow, and I'll go over a couple of things why that is now. Let's see where. Okay, so next slide, please. I only have a couple. Okay, so we transferred everything over, and we needed to first set up all the same symbology. Now, we used the same cartographic symbology that is in the reviewer application so that the user had everything the same. It was the same whether it was in the reviewer application or the editor application. It all looked the same to him. In hindsight, we may change this as the cartographic labeling and symbology doesn't draw as fast as needed. And I think we can get away with other symbols that they used in the collection of it, just those regular colored diamonds. I think they would draw much more quickly. We could probably leave the reviewer application the way it is. So as you can hear me, this is very much still in development. We're still sort of refining this application, or we're trying to as best we can. When we transferred the data over, finding the symbology for me was a mystery. Having not been included in this project really at all until the very end, I was very much sort of in the dark, but enjoyed fumbling through it because it was very entertaining and quite interesting. Part of the interesting things that I found were the symbology. So everything in the symbology is done through the application. So once we stored the application, ported the application over to our web server, then I had, unbeknownst to me, I had all sorts of URLs that I could access that symbology. Not knowing that was a challenge. So each of these little hurdles ended up being more of a challenge than it should have been because I was in the dark. As I figured this out, though, it got to be, as I said, entertaining. For me, I could not, for the life of me, I didn't understand what was going on with the hosted feature service and all of the images. In doing this in the past, all of the images were separate and they were links. They were all hot linked. About 2 years prior to this project, I had done something very, very similar for our public works. And in that feature service, in that application, everything was linked and everything was stored on the web server. So you clicked on the link, it opened up the service. What is new to me and found through this project is the idea of hosted feature services and then storing rasters in a field within the feature table. Very exciting stuff. All of this stuff ends up being probably less than a couple of gigs, I think, and that's for all the counties. I think the total storage on it is maybe 3 credits a day or something. It's really not that. It's not too bad at all, considering we're probably going to have, gosh, many more gigs to add to this, I would think. Go ahead, next slide, please. So we make the okay. So I actually go back a second, if you could, just go back one slide here. All right. So here, sorry about that. So from this, once the data is all ported, we create a web map. The web map has the same symbology, has the same setup. It's supposed to have the same query and everything. Again, we uncovered something in the process of this that I'm going to fix very soon. Next slide. Once you do that, you basically can just take the tools in your organization and very easily, very quickly set them up. Once you're happy with your web map, it's just a matter of going into the item details, picking a template, in this case the editing template, and just applying everything that's there, all within your organization, because everything's already been ported. So now, this editing application is what is being used for all of the updates and editing, with all the new features, all of the new intersections, all of the redone intersections. As Andrew noted, there's lots of old intersections that need to be redone. And since this has been delivered, I think we have about 2 that have been updated. Next slide, please. So some of the things to be concerned about and or highlighted with this solution. What was great was that we were able to port everything over from one organization to the other. All of the SJTPO participating agencies will have access to this if they don't already. It maintains a complete inventory of our traffic control devices, and it transfers the knowledge of maturing inventories from retiring people over to just the new millennials, as they say. They're all going to be on the same page now. They won't have to worry about what happened at the transfer from municipal to county back in 1997 when these kids were just kids. They'll have it all at their fingertips. The editor application is still a bit clunky. This is what I was talking about a little bit before with the symbology, the cartographic symbology and the labeling. I think we may change that. Also, you noted the aerial imagery. I want to touch on that a little bit. Aerial imagery, right now, when you just post it up as a tiled cache, you get the extent levels down to about, I don't know, let's say 1,100 feet or 1,100 scale, something like that. You don't get down to about 50 scale or 20 scale like you would with a true base map, like the USGS topo or like the aerials from ESRI. Currently, we have built a new tile cache that will include that extent level all the way down to the 50-foot scale or to the intersection scale. And the engineering department will then be able to see at the level that they need to with the striping, because the imagery is very good. It's 9-inch resolution, so you'll be able to see striping, you'll be able to see crosswalks, you'll be able to see everything. That's coming. That should hopefully be this week. I have that tile cache ready to go, or so I think. Esri's helping me with that, and we should include that in the application very soon. The other things that I hope to, or the other thing that I want to touch on is why this editor application is just a little bit, can be a lot better, let's say. Backup. So when you start, you have to back up the data. In order to back up the data right now, the only way to do that is to download it as a file geodatabase, or a shapefile, or a geospatial file of your choice, whichever is the option is. There is no quick or easy way that I have found yet, and I'd be glad to hear from any of you listening now if you have any advice for me. I'd gladly take it. As I said, this project is still in development. Have not been able to easily find a way to quickly and eloquently just copy the entire service with all of the data and replicate that. The only way that I see to do it is to actually bring it into something like ArcPro and then republish it and reauthor it as yet another service, which could be the solution that we use. I'm not sure about that yet. But for right now, before the editors, or the people, the data maintenance people do anything, they have to back up the data first. And that's something that we're working on as well. That's pretty much all I have about this. I can pass it back to Janelle, I guess. Thank you very much. I'm glad there was no coughing.
Thank you very much, Matt, for struggling. I know that was probably very on your throat. But Andrew, did you have some final thoughts you wanted to put in?
No, I just, wanted to say that Taylor Wiseman Taylor and JMT and Advantage Engineers all did an outstanding job on the project, and we're happy with how the inventory turned out. And then Matt Duffy did an outstanding job helping us host it. The original plan was to port everything over to SJTPO's ArcGIS Online, but later on we decided that perhaps Matt Duffy should handle it because he's far more competent than we are at that sort of. And then Atlanta County was gracious enough to host the other counties as well. So we're very grateful to Atlanta County for helping us out there and for building the editing tool as well. So I have nothing more to say, but if anybody had any questions, anything at all, we would all be happy to answer them, I'm sure.
Okay, yeah, that is the cue for audience to please type any questions they have for us, for the panel in the box, and we'll answer them, or I'll read them and they will answer them, I should say. Just checking to see if there's anything already in here. Okay. For the third speaker, which would be Dave Bragg, would you please elaborate a bit about the review application? I see how it was used to view data, but what were some specific ways it was used for QC?
All right, so I guess I'll take a swing at it, Colleen, and then you steer me if I go wrong.
Sure.
So the reviewer application, what it allowed them to do basically was see the content as it was being collected in the field. And Colleen mentioned the color coding. So within inside of the feature, or within inside of the reviewer application, if we were to, if WebEx is going to allow me to play with this here, we could actually go in and edit the features, and then we could change the status of those. So the color coding that was established at the beginning, the green, the purple, the blue, that was really used to drive the QC process. So as features were collected in the field, they were marked one particular color. As they were reviewed in-house, they were marked another color. If there was additional work that needed to be done, we would just change attribute fields on the particular feature. So I would come down here and change the review status from reviewed in-house to needs field review. And I apologize, I think WebEx is messing with our application here. But there'd be different statuses listed inside of here for review status. So that review application was nothing more than just a just a simple web application we created just to move to track the progress of the collection through the various stages, and being able to change those attributes as needed to kind of drive any questions or responses to stuff.
That's great. We have a few more. Colleen, did you have anything else to add there? Sorry.
Yeah, just as David said, I totally agree. One critical thing is we've had a lot going on all at once with 431 traffic signals all being inventoried. So it did make it easier having that color-coded graphic to see that, all right, in these four areas, can you have them shut that off? Sorry about that. In these 4 areas, we need to go back and visit this area of Ocean City and have them pick up the crosswalks in these 4 places. I know at one point they had, we had contractors out there with a turn lane all coned off, so we couldn't take our pictures, we couldn't do our measurements. So in certain areas, we had to just improvise and come back later for certain things. So I totally agree with what Dave said. Having the color coding really helped for both field review and in-house review. Sometimes they'd get out there and determine that that traffic signal wasn't a county signal, it was a DOT signal, so it didn't belong on our list. So we had to hurry up and move it to another location. So we called the counties, had it moved, and we would just inventory another one at that point. So we were always live, and it was so nice to be able to have the live opportunity to see, okay, my guys have been here, they've been at these locations, okay, now they're moving over here, you know, so it was really great to be able to, for me to be able to see it on my screen, to see where they are and where they're going at all times, you know, and also reaching out to the stakeholders, having the counties have the opportunity to see, oh, they did this part of Atlantic County, or they did this part of Salem County. It was nice that the stakeholders had that outreach also.
Oh, that is great. So this is sort of a 2-part question. I'm mashing things up. As far as creating the application, did the clients give you data in terms of like CAD drawings or Excel spreadsheets with XY coordinates? And was this a from-scratch application, or was it a template program that you started with, or template application? start with?
I'll answer the first part, and I'll defer the second part over to David Brigg. The first part is we had that list of locations that was on one of my slides with the green. That's what we started with, and we had the KMZ locating it on a map. That's all we had. So then we knocked on doors and screamed and hollered to try to get as many existing traffic signal plans as we could, which really helped us with the pre-populating. And it was a really nice thing that we were able to attach. Sometimes we get 4 to 6 different copies of a traffic signal plan at one location, and we went through and said, okay, which is the one we want to attach? Everything was sent to us not in MicroStation or AutoCAD. Everything was sent to us as a PDF. All the plans and timings were PDFs. Yeah, that's that list on the right there, the green. So that's what we started with. It was just nothing but an Excel spreadsheet. Then we expanded it to KMZ locations like you see on the left there. And then from there, we were able to attach to every one of those little blue bubbles the traffic signal plan that we got from Atlantic County or Salem County. We were able to attach them right to that, and the timings, whatever we got. And last but not least, I see somebody had a question on MyoVision. SJTPO had a previous project where they did data collection, and everything was delivered as MyoVision. So this was, they already had that in-house. So SJTPO shared the MyoVision link with Taylor Wiseman Taylor and JMT, so we could put that link into each individual location of the 69, so we could link to the traffic count data we had. And Dave, I'll defer to you for the second half of that question, which I think was more framework-wise.
Yeah. So the as Colleen mentioned, the KMZs, we converted those to shape files and eventually into a feature class, and then posted that stuff up online. All of the plans, as Colleen mentioned, were PDFs, and they were treated as attachments. The same with the imagery. Matthew had talked about the way that we had stored those. They were all just attachments to the individual features. As far as the applications, all of them, we just used out-of-the-box templates for all of these applications, except for the final one. That final custom application, that's one that we did a little bit of development on. But we tried really hard to stay with the templates to keep costs down. So we tried to, it's easier for us to turn around a simple template application with a couple tweaks here and there that are accessible through the online or through ArcGIS Online, then try to build something out. So we're able to kind of turn things around pretty quickly and then maintain it fairly easily as well too.
Wow, that's great. Somebody is asking about the marker clustering. Did it help visualization? Did the clustering of the marker symbols help visualization, and how did you prevent overlapping? Is that just standard, or did you do something specific for that?
Yeah, I guess for those, we didn't do anything specific for those. That's just, we just kind of took the out of the box. Some of the overlapping, especially with some of the larger traffic signal inventories, because they were collecting everything. They would collect the pedestal, and then the pedestal had a light fixture on it, and then the pedestal also had a mast arm associated with it or a span wire associated with it. So there's definitely a lot of overlapping. The best thing we did with that was just break everything out into individual feature classes so you could turn on and turn off what you wanted to see. But we didn't do anything specialized as far as clustering or try to do some fancy symbology.
Well, it looked really great. I knew that we'd get this eventually. Is there a geodatabase design available? So is there
like a schema?
Yeah, schema.
I suppose there could be. That's up to these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would be up to SJTPO. But yeah, there's definitely, we took the Excel spreadsheet and there's a schema that we use for this. So
yeah, I guess the second part of that is, are you willing to share?
Andrew?
Yeah, obviously we're willing to share, but I would, as always, defer to the decision to the counties, and if all 3 of the counties are willing to share the design of the geodatabase or any of the other information, then that would be fine.
Okay, we'll put a pin in that and check with that later. And I think we have one last question. Were any custom reports created for this application, reports that could be exported from ArcGIS Online Dashboard, etc.? Anybody? Not really?
No, we didn't. There were no requirements for custom reporting in any of the applications or in the RFP. Just the visualization and the inventory, the physical location of the inventory itself.
Well, that was some great questions from our audience. Thank you very much. That shows that this was one of the most riveting presentations we've had so far. A lot of interaction here, and obviously there will be maybe some follow-up too. We're almost at our hour, so I want to thank everyone very much, Andrew, Dave, Matthew, and Colleen for being our presenters, and also thanks to Bob Poliska and JMT Technology for sponsoring our webinar today. I hope everyone enjoyed today's webinar and will join MAGTUG on Friday, October 20th at the New Jersey DOT headquarters in Ewing, New Jersey for a NJDOT GIS showcase. Details of this full-day information exchange in-person meeting and registration, because seats are limited and they're halfway gone now, are available on the magtug.wordpress.com website. Until we meet again, have a very geospatial day, everyone. Goodbye.